It was, I will say, overall, a good week.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, besides you being sniffly, everything else in the week went pretty much according to plan.
Yeah, other than this intro being recorded like a week late. But
Well, there's that.
you know.
But, good things have been happening.
Yeah.
I like this movie a lot.
It is. It's just a fun movie.
Yeah.
It maybe it's even better because we've had such a slump in little disappointments along the way.
I don't
last few.
I don't want to say that because I think if we had been watching a lot of good movies, we would still feel the same about this movie.
Well, I would feel the same about the movie, but I think the overall was like,
oh, the feeling.
It's like going to an ice cream tasting place.
Okay.
And you have 5 bowls of, sounded interesting, looked good. And you're like, and then you get to like Blue Moon at the end. It's still Blue Moon. But after that, it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot going on this week, but I don't think we need to go through every little thing.
No, that actually in tomorrow we'll be recording this episode, so we can cover the week there.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, some good lessons. I mean, they're simple lessons.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't going to knock your script out of the park. The things we talk about.
Right.
But it is going to address comedy, simple comedy, and we go on a bit about what happened to this kind of comedy, clean comedy, just general funny stuff, right? Without sex jokes, without dirty jokes, without vulgarity, just completely vulgar, puerile situations.
Yeah.
The gross out humor.
You don't have to be dirty to be funny.
No. And this, it's just funny.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it. Well, should we dive into this bad boy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. Hey B-Siders, welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And we have finally, a pleasantly good favorite.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yes. Yeah. No surprises. Man, which is, this is kind of capping a really good weekend. As you're sipping your beverage.
My really good beverage.
Well, yeah, that's just one more thing. So having some Death Wish coffee while we do this. It's been a while.
Ooh.
Yeah. We used to do it like exclusively.
We did. It was a lot of Death Wish coffee.
Well, we go through a lot of coffee and it became readily apparent that, on the budgetary bottom line sense, yeah, it was
paying $80 every 2 weeks for coffee.
Well, yeah. I mean, 3 Death Wish bags covers the 1 bag that, we can normally get and we enjoy.
Yeah.
We decided to treat ourselves. We had yesterday a bang up day.
Frickin' fantabulous day.
Yeah. We did went to a local Comic-Con.
Yes.
The QuadCon.
QuadCon, yes.
Yeah, which was here in Madison yesterday and today. We didn't go today.
They do sort of smallish local pop-up cons.
Yeah. And so it was at the mall. And, a couple dozen little vendor booths and stuff, mostly comics.
Yeah, lots of comics, which is awesome.
Some artists, some authors.
Mm-hmm.
And
toys, lots of toys.
Oh, God, lots of toys. Always the toys.
Yeah.
Always the toys. But it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
We got to talk to some folks. And that's one of the reasons to go is talking to the artists and the authors and, sometimes even just the comic vendors, So everyone walked away with a little something, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Poor Lily, just surrounded by tens of thousands of dollars worth of anime stuff.
She was so well behaved, though.
Yeah.
She wanted everything, but we were like, hey.
Well, yeah. You've got to pick and choose because I want everything too.
Right.
And I can't get everything.
Yeah.
So neither can you. But yeah, we did pretty good. We have some folks. I just want to shout out to them because we had a good time chatting with them and got some stuff from them.
Did.
So WindArrow 3D, they do these wonderful 3D printing things. Mostly
D&D related.
Yeah, like we got a dice roller, which is a skull.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we mostly got that because Lily does have a problem keeping her dice in her tray. It worked beautifully.
It did. We didn't have one rogue die.
No. And that's kind of, again, that's why we got it. But that was the other thing that made this, yesterday fantastic is we did the Comic-Con and then D&D.
And we played D&D afterwards. And it was so fun because we both got to DM.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to that. I got some art from Big Hair Illustrations.
Yes.
So you can look these up. Big Hair Illustrations on Instagram. And I got this wonderful Indiana Jones theme that he's doing.
Yeah.
Where he just takes like scenes, like one was the Riddles in the Dark with Bilbo and Gollum from The Hobbit. And the very top, Indiana Jones is falling through the ceiling. And the one I got, though, was Indiana Jones looting Scrooge McDuck's vault. And there's all these Easter egg things in there from all the movies and a corner of Han Solo frozen in carbonite.
Yes.
If you don't know what Han Solo frozen in carbonite looks like, you'd never know what that little corner thing was. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. We picked up a graphic novel series.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them.
And a couple extra books from CJ Standal, and he's a local author. Used to teach at one of the high schools.
Yeah, we had a nice conversation with CJ.
Yeah, and a lot of cool stuff going on. And then you picked up some comics from Deep Well Studios.
Yeah, so these guys are also local artists, and this was kind of their like COVID project, was these little comics that they did, and they were all based in their hometown in Stoughton, Wisconsin. And so the like buildings in the comics are all local buildings from that town.
Right.
And they let people like send in pictures of themselves running away from the like bunny kaiju that's in their comics. And the people got to be drawn in them, which was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really nice guys.
Well, I will put these links will be in the show notes, folks. It's funny because when we were talking to CJ, you had said that it's a shame we started this podcast just movies.
I know.
Because we have all these wonderful creatives that are not movie related.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the wide and wonderful world of creatives obviously encompasses far more than just film. Right.
Right. And we've talked about it before. Artists. I mean, there's like set designers, there's a lot of stuff, but it's all involved with film.
Right.
But a creative is a creative. And we've addressed people who are songwriters and, illustrators, authors, who aren't doing screenplays, who write for, like CJ writes the story for the comic.
Yeah.
The graphic novel.
Hires artists.
Hires an artist to do it. That's kind of why we're talking about them right now, because they are creatives, and they're doing what anyone else is doing. Every one of them. This is the after hours.
Yeah.
Like CJ, we gave him he wanted a card, so he listened to our podcast because he now has to commute for his day job.
Right.
And that's just the thing is day job.
I know.
Go to these Comic-Cons, and like I said, this wasn't huge. And I haven't gotten to, I was thinking of doing it today, but I just like to relax. But like tomorrow night, I'll do another BF McGillicuddy. And I'm gonna do Comic Cons as the topic.
Oh yeah.
Unless you go to like San Diego Comic Con where it's full of Hollywood stars and stuff, obviously their day job is the dream job.
Yeah.
But everyone else, indie filmmakers, even the folks who are like B-movie, right? That's not their gig. They have day jobs, which is weird. Just really weird that tens of thousands of creatives, have to pound this out. And we've talked about like, Wormwood, Road of the Dead, 3 years on just weekends. All these, I mean, Anton with Space Trucker Bruce, that was like 2 years.
It was more than that.
Filming.
It was like, 2 years filming and then,
but then he had to
6
do
or 7 years editing.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these people, that's why we pick them for the lessons.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was telling CJ. Like, it's, too many people, you go online and you think, man, I want to get sold. I want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up landing, after going down the rabbit hole, you end up landing on a web page where they're like, hey, we're going to get you, show you how to do this and that and be seen and, get your scripts purchased and stuff. We're going to help you with your writing, blah, 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 blah. And then you pay for it. And then what you get is here's 3 Oscar winning fucking scripts. Read them, emulate them. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And I'm so sick of that because most Oscar groupings I've never agreed with and I never thought were fantastic. The risk takers are the folks with the B movie. The studio gave them a little bit of money. Other than that, they're like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna do my thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because they don't truly care enough to hound me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think more often than not, the Oscar darlings are not so much. I'm not saying that they're not, talented and works of art in their own sense, but more often than not, it's not so much about the art as it is about the, just the Academy and the, the favors.
Well, right. And they're all very commercially oriented.
Yeah.
And it's not to say there aren't some great fucking movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like Forrest Gump. I don't give a shit if it was A, B, C, D.
Oh, it's a fantastic movie.
QZ. Yeah, it's wonderful, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
And whether or not it had awards attached to it, it is what it is. But the real creative, I don't want to say cutting edge, walking the line or even crossing it, that's where indie film comes in. Some of it not fantastic. I mean, sometimes you cross the line and, well, there's a lesson there. Don't do it again.
Sure.
Or do something, differently. But overall, just the number of folks who just, drive forward with all this, the writing, the directing, the editing, trying to do the best they can, effects and stuff, no budget, low budget shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the best lessons are learned from here, because not only like with, cause I finished listening to, Astro Loco, which is what's currently running today and a new one will be up tomorrow. But a lot of what was in there was just basically railing on the story. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, not everything's going to be a home run. Everything else is super cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the performances and stuff and, anyway, that just, going to these conventions and seeing other creatives in other fields doing the same thing. I mean, they're indie as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're indie artists. It's like,
100%.
The gentleman I was talking to with, big hair illustrations, he said, just do it after work and when I have the time and, and it's just sad that so much creativity is just fucking shelved because, we got to pay bills.
Well,
we got to do stuff.
Yeah. And as a society, we just don't put monetary value on art.
Not anymore.
In the way that we should.
I always go through these things thinking, but for, the age of patrons.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever that vanished, all these people would be gainfully employed with a monthly stipend, living in a little house on the edge of an estate, right?
Right.
Being taken care of to do their thing, because there was a time, it was fashionable for the wealthy to do it. But most of them did it because it made sense. You're putting something into the world in some sort of art form that is ultimately going to make everything better.
Yeah.
The more art we surround ourselves with, and the more ideas and conceptualizations that we see people come up with in visual or audio, formats or written word, when you're exposed to something like that, you can't help it. Your brain expands a little bit. Like, oh, this is a different way of perceiving it, and that will stick with you forever. And that will help your stuff.
Yes.
Right? You'd be like, oh no, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, I remember this thing. So if I look at it through that lens, is there something I can do to make it better? Is there a different way of doing this that would be more interesting? Anyway, it was a lot of fun. It's always educational. Love meeting people, and we got to have fun. Lily even was chatting it up. She found a kid who was an anime freak like her, and they were just going at it for
quite a while.
Yeah, quite a while.
Yeah, we wandered off to like the next section over, and she was still there.
Yeah. But after the comic convention,
we came home.
We did like a double header of D&D, which is the first time ever.
We did. It was really interesting.
Yeah. So we finished up we were able to finally finish
our play test.
Yeah, the play test of the module that I wrote. Everyone seemed to have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We had a little discussion after, and, it
gave some notes.
Yeah. But it overall was fantastic. And then we got to switch gears and went back to your campaign.
Yes.
Which, as we left at a pretty important point to do this playtesting. So we were all very anxious to get back into that as well. And that was, our usual 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. run.
Right.
And we got a lot done, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of housekeeping.
Yeah. I mean, getting back into a new campaign, I think, or not a new but getting back into a campaign that you have paused, like I think that housekeeping and a little bit of downtime and kind of what we did a little less intense was like a good way to just ease back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, where we left off this time, Jesus Christ, it's going to be some stuff.
I like to throw little things like that at you guys at the end.
Oh, I know. I
think it's fun.
And that's where we're going to stop. Fuck me. Okay.
Well, cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the spirit of all this fun stuff, this week we have a movie that we've enjoyed. Have some things to talk about. It. Why don't we get rolling? And you can tell us what this bad boy is.
Yeah. So this movie, usually we tell you where you can watch these movies. I don't actually know if this is on any streaming services, and it might be difficult to get a hold of. I just want to put that out there.
That is true.
Because it's a kind of oddball little movie that we just happen to have the DVD of.
Yes.
But it is called The Gods Must Be Crazy. It was made in 1980, written and directed by Jamie Hughes. Starring, I want to say, Nihao? Or Ni-cho?
It's, ow.
Okay.
It's as close as I can get to it.
Okay. Marius Weyers and Sandra Prinsloo. It was rated PG. This is a family-friendly movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the plot. It is a comic allegory about a traveling bushman who encounters modern civilization and its stranger aspects including a clumsy scientist and a band of revolutionaries.
That's fair. I think, though, the original, I mean, it played, I mean, you watch the trailer.
Yeah.
Right? And you can see it's about a Coke bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty blunt about it in the trailer. And that's kind of the whole thing is, you know, a Coke bottle oh my God, a Coke bottle falls out of the sky. Mm-hmm. Affects this village in a negative way after a while. And this bushman decides, all right, getting rid of this.
Right. And goes on a journey.
Yep. To do so.
Yeah, it's an odd and interesting and fun little film.
It is. You have a note here.
I
have a couple in my head that I wanted to get out too. So
I don't want it. I am terrible at saying this name. So
ow. I can't get that popping.
Okay. Well, so he was paid less than $2,000 for his role as Key. Even though the film grossed over $200 million worldwide. Mm-hmm. So before his death in 2003, Jamie Hughes gave him $20,000 and a monthly stipend.
Right.
And he actually, in later films, because he was in later films, mm-hmm. did like kind of negotiate up with his salary because he wanted to be able to provide for his family. He had 3 wives, I think, and, you know, a lot of kids, and was like, hey, I'm
yeah. Well, that's kind of where my notes come in. A couple things. Number one, so if you go look this up on IMDb. Now, folks, mind you, we didn't just stumble across this.
No.
Right. I saw this in the theater when it was released. Right. And it wasn't like a worldwide release, but at the time, Madison had some indie theaters. Right. So I saw this in 1980, and I've seen it many times since. Had the VHS and had the DVD before those vanished off the face of the earth. You know, you read the things like in IMDb now. There are people who are like all over this thing. I mean, most of them are positive, but then there are people like, oh, this is racist and this and that. And I just want to make a comment on that. Number one. So the style of comedy in this film is basic, just general buffoonery.
Yeah, it's...
Now, if you have a marginalized ethnicity in a movie that is performing general buffoonery, but everybody else is also, it's not racist. You know, it just isn't. Everyone is acting the same level of stupid because it's the same level of comedy. That's like saying people who are on the Benny Hill show are being marginalized. No, he's the star and creator, and he's the one who chiefly makes himself look like an idiot.
Right. You know? I mean, it's very much like, who was the guy who smashed watermelons? What was his name?
Gallagher.
Yeah, it's very much in that sort of physical.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is like the precursor to Ryan Coogler doing film, right? This was a South African film, and there wasn't much of an industry, which is why it did its money worldwide. It did, you know, butt kiss in South Africa. And I just, it just bugs me. It just, the lack of depth that people have in their perception and processing of things. And they just like snap judgment stuff that to me makes them look like idiots. Right. But if you have a revolutionary / terrorist group in a comedy and you play them to absolute extremes to make fun of them, which I will say this, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Right. That it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. You know, we mock shit all the time. Anyway, but this whole thing about the pay, this is a lesson I want to talk about before we get into the movie, before I start talking about it, is this is an example. Independent film is the worst at exploiting people.
Yes.
It is a long, dark, unpleasant history. And all I can say, folks, is don't fucking be part of it. They deliberately paid this guy next to nothing.
They did. They deliberately exploited him.
Because he was literally a bushman.
Yeah.
right? Now, they didn't live as they show them in the movie, even though there still are bush people who choose to live that way.
Yeah.
Right? With no modern anything. And they're doing just fine. But the majority have been brought into the fringes of civilization, if not fully immersed in it. Yeah. Right? But they knew, had no concept of the scale of money.
Right.
Right. And now, granted, it's an indie film, and they may not have had much money.
Right.
In the beginning, because we didn't get that information. But here's the relevant point. So when we were talking to the guys for Revenge of Zoe, right? One of the things that Jeffrey Notkin said was that they were all, because he came in late, right? He found out about it. He's like, I want to get in on this. And they're like, yeah, come on in. But, he said they were very generous on the back end, which is kind of how indie film works, right? You do these fundraisers and shit and campaigns to get money to make the movie. And making the movie doesn't usually involve paying people what they're worth.
Not in very small indie films.
No. It often involves maybe giving them some money. A lot of times it involves not anyone getting paid. It's all going into production and post. Right.
And then you hope that on the back end.
And then on the back end, when you hit the circuits and stuff, and you hit these festivals, and more people want your film in a festival, and then you get cuts of that when they're from the showings. And then when that happens, all I can say is, folks, don't be a fuckhead.
Yeah.
All right. You're the creator of this film. That's like captain of the ship. You come last.
Yeah.
All right. The only reason your shit is in a festival being screened is because of all the fucking hard work everybody else put into it as well. Pay them first. Your reward will come when you can do a second film behind the success of this first one to actually get financing. Then you can reward yourself with some pay. Just like starting a corporation. Good CEO never fucking pays themselves. Pays the people who are making the boat float. You know what I mean? Because this did become a huge thing. That's why this happened in making the payment and stuff. Just, I guess that's like the golden lesson ever. Pay your people. If you can't pay them up front, pay them on the back end. If your shit's making money, pay them what you know they're worth. And if you're making $200 million, and that's over a long period of time, right? It wasn't like in 1980 it made 200 million.
Well, no.
It took a little while. But when you hit that point, so today, say 2 years after your stuff comes out, you're starting to tabulate, well, shit, even at today's money at 200 million, right? You should be able to pay every person on that film rate.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Not indie film, what I can afford. You should be paying them rate.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's all their hard work that got this to where it is. So please consider that when you're moving forward. There is going to be a time to pay the piper. And, and also upfront, don't fuck people upfront.
Right.
Right. If you've got money to pay them, give them the fucking money. At least be honest with them. It'd be like us signing on an artist to illustrate, the graphic novel and say, so we did this fundraiser. I could give you 15 grand, but I'm not going to give you anything. And let's see what it sells. And then what I can give you off that back end. That's just dickery at the highest level, So that's kind of the thing. The two things I wanted to say. One, it's a fucking spoof film. Everybody's made to look like an idiot. Nobody's picking on anybody.
Right.
Grow the fuck up. And number two, filmmakers, don't fuck your people. Just don't. If you can't pay them up front, and most people in indie get it. This is a freebie, right? We've had many people say, I can't ask more of them. They're already fucking working weekends. their weekends, taking their time to do my shit for free. I'm not going to ask more of them, right?
Yeah.
But on the back end, if you can, man, pay it out. Pay them for their stuff.
Right.
You know. Anyway, we got something to talk about.
Do you want to start talking about this movie?
As soon as I have some coffee.
Okay. God, that's good.
It is good. All right. So we open with a zoom into the Kalahari Desert from space. Very 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have this nature show style narration. I'm just, spoiler, that's what made this movie.
Yeah.
The funny shit that goes on, there's some funny moments and it's fun. But throughout the whole thing is this narrator. And for people who are, well, basically my age and can remember all the nature shows that were on in the 70s, everything from Jacques Cousteau to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and the narrations that went with it was fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, even back then, you're just kind of like, it's a little exuberant, friend. But having that attached in this fashion was wonderful. So we're introduced to what are referred to as the little people of the Kalahari, the Bushmen.
Right.
And they're called that because from an average height perspective, they are very, very small.
Right.
Right. We learn that they can get water, from the waterless desert, find food that no one else can. Explains that they kind of live in a paradise of sorts in isolation from civilization. And they make note of every now and again, they hear these rumblings in the sky. They think it's the gods' stomachs.
Right.
Rumbling. And it's, high flying planes. And their language is based heavily on the clicking sounds made with the tongue. And another quick segue. I tried so hard after seeing this movie for the first time because I was 11. I'm like, I want to try and do that. 40 years later, you just heard me try and do it. I can't, but I think that is the most amazing language.
It is really fascinating.
And it's the, I can't get that hard pop click anymore either. So yeah. And well, they do it with, like when you have like a brain freeze and you take the back of your tongue, roll it up against the soft part of the palate. That's where the click comes from.
I can't even.
Yeah. And it's just like click, 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 click. It's, but I mean, when you grow up with it, everything forms to make, those sounds and stuff. But yeah, I used to just torture myself all the time. Okay. Tonight's the night. I'm going to do it. Sounds terrible. But I love the language. That's another thing that made me fall in love with this film is it's a beautiful language and one that was really not often heard. Now I had heard it before this in some like National Geographic documentaries and stuff, but, when it's given to you as like part of a movie, you're like, ooh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So we see how they hunt and live, how in tune they are with nature and how the community is put over possession. As a side note again, multiple tribes in Africa don't have,
a concept of ownership.
Well, they don't even have it in their language, to possess, my underwear, my shoes. You can't translate to say that because they don't have that concept, which I think, ideally is pretty cool. Anyway, so we cut 600 miles south to a major city and we have the narrator still going. We get shots of like crowds, traffic, cars, houses. Some jabroni who drives his car out of his driveway like 50 feet down the road to his mailbox and then backs up to his garage.
Yeah, I think it's a woman actually who's doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
And hair curlers.
And then we just get a complete rundown on just how civilization is just absolute shit. The funniest thing is a breakdown. I didn't write it all out, but as a breakdown of the workday.
Right.
When it
8:30 is the time to look busy.
Yeah, 8:30 is the time to look busy. At 10:00, it's okay to not look busy. But by 10:01 or 10:15, it's time to look busy again.
Yeah, it's a lot of very like cheeky jokes about how ridiculous civilization kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're very on point and they're very true.
Yeah.
And it's like strongly resembling the jokes that like are made in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy a lot.
Yeah. When we first saw this, well, when you first saw it with me, you made those comparisons, and every time they remind you.
It's just this very dry, cheeky humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like British humor's first cousin.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's like German-Dutch history, it's culturally very similar in terms of their humor and stuff. So through all this, we finally get like planted into something happening. A reporter is talking to her editor about a story. Her name is Kate. She's presented with a story in Botswana about teachers. And then we get the rundown of breaks, work breaks, lunch. And she's sitting at lunch, and this woman goes, "I'm sorry. Is the noise in my head bothering you?" And that's when Kate's like, "All right, time to do the Botswana thing and go teach."
So we cut back to the Kalahari, and there's a man in a plane above the desert finishing off a Coke bottle. He tosses it out the window, and it lands near the tribe of Bushmen, and one of them finds it, and this is our boy Key.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never seen anything like this in their whole lives, and so they're marveling over it, wondering why the gods sent it, because the gods only send useful things.
Mm-hmm.
So they find all kinds of uses for it, like curing thongs and snakeskin and making music and like crushing roots and stuff. It's very useful, but it starts causing problems because there's only one of it. They can't share it. It's not like the other things that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people start getting jealous about it, fighting over it, getting violent. And eventually Key gets kind of tired of this. So he tries sending it back to the gods by just like chucking it up in the air. And it falls down and it hits his daughter.
Yeah.
Just kind of beans her on the head. So he carries it away and buries it, but it ends up coming back to them through a series of cute little
a hyena digs it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then a warthog chases the hyena, who drops the bottle, and then
one of the kids finds it
and brings it back to the village.
Yeah.
He's like, "Ah!"
So they have a family meeting about it. Well, like a community meeting. And they decide that it's an evil thing, and they don't know why the gods sent it, but someone has to take it to the end of the earth so they can give it back to the gods. And so it's going to be Key who does this. So he starts his journey the next day. And then we kind of cut away to 200 miles north. Trouble is brewing. There is a rebellion uprising. And I love how the rebels are portrayed in this, and that they're like a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
And this is where the very like Three Stooges humor really comes in.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of rebels. They go into a government building. They clumsily shoot up the place. It's just a fracas. It's like, it seems like it's making light of the things, but it really isn't. We learned the leader of the rebels is Sam Bohan.
Samboha.
Boha. And he finds out via radio report that they didn't actually like kill the people that he wanted them to kill. So he's upset about that. So we also have the president who they tried to shoot up. trying to find out information from the rebels. And it seems like he's going to throw him out of a helicopter.
Yes.
Right? So he kicks him out, and the helicopter hasn't actually left the ground. So the guy just falls like 2 feet and ends up, spilling his secrets. And it's just, I mean, I don't want to like go through the whole, everything that happens in every detail.
Oh yeah, no.
But like the ineptitude of kind of everyone involved in this situation is kind of cute. It's weird. And I think they do this because it is a way to keep the lighthearted tone of the film kind of throughout.
Right.
Right. It's very clever because it doesn't actually make light of what the rebels are trying to do. Right.
Right.
It more so just makes fun of like the individuals.
Right. I will say, I think, and I always thought, I didn't think this when I first saw it, but as I got a little older and, came to understand the history of what was going on,
mm-hmm.
I think it had a lot more to do with they were making fun of the cause, because there was a period on the continent of Africa that within every country there were revolutions and nobody could define why.
Right.
Right. It's like, well, this particular gentleman in charge of the country is actually fighting to do everything for the people. His government is trying real hard. But then there's some dude in the military who's like, I don't like this because I'm not in charge. Right.
Right.
So there's all these revolutions. And, on the world stage, people are like, well, what is the point? I don't know who to root for. I mean, was this guy an asshole? No, he was fine. So then why is this guy trying to take him down? Because he wants power. Well, then you got a guy who is an asshole. And these guys are like, well, let's take him down. And you're like, well, are they any better? It was just so chaotic.
Yeah.
And closer to home, we had the same thing in Central America. We had some governments that were awful and rightfully had revolutions, but also just had revolutions
for no real reason.
No reason.
Yeah.
Right? That we could, like, how is this better?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what it was to bring this storyline, because they never talk about what his deal is. Mm-hmm. Right? Samboja is he's just the guy in charge.
Yeah.
Of this revolution.
He doesn't actually seem to have a real goal as far as what he wants to do.
No, I think he just wants to be the big pickle.
Yeah.
But
meanwhile, Key is on his trek. He sees some things. He sees like a wildebeest herd. He has a conversation with a baboon who takes his bottle for a little bit.
I love that one so much. He's
go ahead.
So he did some hunting.
Yeah.
And while he's doing his bit, right, this baboon comes up, takes the bottle, runs up to a tree. And the whole thing is, the baboon is taking, I can't do that voice. It's just such a unique.
The narrator explaining.
Yeah. The bamboo is, takes it up to a tree. Key, tries to reason with it. And after discussing it with him for a long time, and it shows like this, he's been at it for like 2 hours.
Right.
Just continuously talking to this baboon on what a bad idea it is to have this evil thing.
Right.
And then the baboon just like drops like, oh, fuck this. I got to get out of here. And then he ends it with Keith, and Keith told him that was a very good decision.
Yes. It was a very good decision you made. Right. So then we're back with the reporter who was planning to go to Botswana. She's on her way, essentially. And then we're introduced to a guy who is, he seems to be kind of an explorer type dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking care of an elephant and taking stool samples from it.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back to his station where there's a mechanic working on a truck and just like bitching about it the whole time.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's the best.
Hilariously. So our explorer guy is doing tests on the elephant stool, and then a reverend rides up on a horse, and he works with the school. He's supposed to go and meet the new school teacher. So we're like, oh, aha. right?
Yeah. So Kate is,
Yeah.
that's her deal.
But they need a way to get there, which is maybe a little bit of a of a to do. The
Yes.
mechanic says the truck should make it. He also has a name for this truck. He calls it the Antichrist.
Yes.
So in order to start the truck, they have to use a horse and all of their own personal, like, person power.
Yes.
To drag this truck so that they can get it going in order to start it.
To bump start it.
Yeah.
And I love this truck. And Lily was fascinated by this thing too. This is, I think it's a late 60s Land Rover.
Mm-hmm.
But so the thing with the Antichrist is they just redid the engine. So the rings, new rings. So it's going to be a bitch to start. That's why they had to bump start it. And to do something, he had to take the handbrake off, the emergency brake. You know, I mean, he had that laundry list of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he goes through it so fast that you're just like, okay.
Yeah. Don't let it stop. Don't let it stall because it'll be a bitch to start.
Don't get stuck.
Yeah. You know, keep, take it out of gear, but you don't have an emergency brake or a parking brake or whatever you want to call it. And keep it idling.
Yeah. So our explorer guy is going to go and pick up the school teacher because the Reverend can't. And he's nervous about it because he's not good at talking to women.
Right.
So they finally get it started and he drives off.
So Kate, in the meantime, has arrived in a semi-nearby village,
mm-hmm.
right? And then hops on a bus. And I love these buses. These buses have been running in Africa from the time that wheels and engines met, So all of her shit's like hurled up onto the roof and she gets on the bus. The scientist is driving across the open desert. And then we cut to Kate. She's dropped off alongside of a road alone. And that's the thing is the driver of the bus knows, like, quote, where the bus stops are.
Right.
I mean, there's no signs or anything, right? But he knows where in the road next to what tree is this is where I let people off and this is where people know to come get them.
Mm-hmm.
So she's, dropped off there. And then the scientist, this is one of the best parts of this fucking movie, has to deal with opening a gate, right? So he has to deal with this as the truck is idling and sputtering along on its own. And then, that one's pretty good. Like he puts it in first gear and it's just going, pup, 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 pup. He quick outruns it, opens up the gate, lets the truck through, closes the gate, catches up with the truck, hops in, hits second gear and off he goes. Then comes to another gate. And this one's on a fucking hill. So he tries it again, but then it reaches that point where there's not enough oomph. So it starts to roll backwards and there's no handbrake. So he tries again and again to put a rock under the tire and it keeps rolling over it. He eventually finds success.
Yeah, they do this little kind of like conceit in this movie that is one of the oldest conceits in film that you can do to make physical comedy funnier, which is they do this very simple thing. Here's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They speed up the reel.
Yep. And we were just talking about that in Blue World Order.
Right.
How it's not funny or cool when you do that to make your cars look like a DeLorean is going 100 miles an hour through the desert, right? On a bumpy road.
Right.
That just looks stupid.
But it is funny when it's a guy running after a car.
Yeah. It's very Benny Hill and it's funny as shit.
You can even just hear the music. They didn't play the music, but you can always hear the music. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So, and then at one point he's speeding along and he just like bolts off the road to avoid two rhinos who are just like hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
He gets bogged down in mud. He's just having a hell of a time with this fucking truck. Meanwhile, we see Kate just sitting on the side of the road, reading a book. And then we cut to Samboha and crew. They pull up to this small market on their getaway and, to rob it. And there's this old man sitting with this ancient sewing machine sewing.
An old singer, yeah.
Yeah, just sitting on the deck of the store. He's deaf, apparently. So they're yelling at him to, get on the ground, and he just keeps sewing. Some boha shoots at him, shoots the spool off the thing, and the guy's like, what the hell just happened? So he just bends down, gets another one, right? Threads it, and just keeps going through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, then Samboha and his crew are off. Finally, Kate's ride arrives. There's more parking issues. Andrew is the scientist, and he introduces himself. Kate is kind of baffled.
Yeah.
He's just sort of, he's talking like he's having a stroke. He's just not making any sense to her. But they're off. And I love this. It's just these little things that crack me up. They stop at this gas station on the way back.
Yeah.
And this guy comes up all happy, and he goes to spray the windshield, but there isn't one. So he ends up just literally blasting Kate in the face with cleaning fluid. Just, ah! And then on the way back, there's more problems with the gates. Kate at one point tries to climb out.
Yeah.
As the car starts to roll downhill. And then it rolls downhill and then up the hill. And it stops, comes back down, comes back up to Andrew. And then we cut to Key, who meanwhile is just walking. He comes to a man who's sitting by a small fire, and he picks up a rifle thinking, well, this is a strange kind of stick thing. So the man thinks he's getting robbed, puts his arms up, runs off. Key follows him for a little bit, and then he thinks, the man saw the evil thing.
He must have seen, yeah.
Yeah, and he has rightfully run off. I'll let him go.
Right.
Right.
The evil thing, as a reminder, is the Coke bottle.
The Coke bottle, yeah. So back to Andrew and Kate. The truck ends up stalling in a river. Andrew tries to carry her to shore, and he actually does, sets her down, and then ends up just like fullback tackling her into the water because he stumbles, and just like sends her flying. She loses her shoes. They go to get her bags. Kate tries to get into something dry, and so does Andrew, but a warthog chases him in his underwear, and he runs into Kate, who's in her underwear, and she right away thinks
he's a pervert.
Yeah. So that night, Key is sitting by a fire when a rhino comes by, because he's now, they say, he's not far. They're not far apart. Right. So he's sitting by a fire, and a rhino comes in and stamps it out.
I love this because the narrator explains that the rhino is the self-appointed fire prevention officer.
Yeah, the self-appointed fire prevention officer of the Kalahari. And then the rhino runs off, right? Yeah, and you can and Key is, you can tell he's whatever as close to swearing as could be. He's just not happy with, I got to make another fire. So Kate and Andrew are eating by their fire. And what was it? Andrew does something. She thinks he's getting fresh because he hears something.
Right.
And then she ends up running up into a tree. The rhino comes, stamps out their fire. She doesn't see him stamp it out.
Right.
Doesn't see the rhino stamp it out, stamps it out, and runs off. But instead of putting it out, actually kind of spread it out. So she looks back and she sees Andrew putting out bits of the fire.
Right.
Thinking that it's just all this shit. So then he makes another fire to prove that rhino stomped them out, but it doesn't come.
No.
Like, it must be too far.
Yeah, he's not endearing himself to her at all. Like everything he's trying is just going wrong.
Well, and he can't explain himself to any degree.
No.
So we get morning. Kia's walking. Semboha's people are storming through a border gate. Military cashes through and destroys the guardhouse. Andrew decides to use a winch on the front of the truck to get it out of the water.
Right.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So he loops it around a giant branch and a giant tree. Kate is changing again, and she gets caught in these weird pricklies.
Yeah.
calls out. He goes to try and help her and ends up spending a lot of time doing that. So the truck does get crapped out of the water and then starts climbing the rope up towards the tree branch.
Right. So then as he's kind of dealing with that, Key comes across the teacher, and he thinks that she is the strangest person, the ugliest person
he's ever seen.
Yeah. But he thinks that she might be a god because she's wearing weird clothes and like she's just a very strange looking person. So he tries to give her back to the bottle so he can go home. And then Andrew comes back and the mechanic ends up coming, and the mechanic actually speaks the language of the Bushman
language, yes.
And he tries to explain, I don't want this. I want, I came to throw it away. And the mechanic doesn't quite understand like the reasons behind it.
Well, he doesn't explain. He doesn't give them like this fell from the sky and this and that. He's just like,
here.
I
don't want this anymore.
Take this. I don't want this anymore.
Right.
So the natural reaction is, well, then fucking throw it away.
Yeah.
So yeah, because he tells Andrew, he's like, well, what's he say? He says he doesn't want it anymore.
And Andrew says, well, we don't want it.
We don't want it. Tell him to go throw it away.
So the mechanic tells him, go throw it away.
And then Key is like, gods.
Yeah, very frustrated. And disappointed by it.
Yeah.
So then we see the mechanic, and I can't remember ever what his name is, but then Andrew and Kate slowly towing the Antichrist Jeep through the desert. And this safari guide, Jack something or other.
Well, the mechanic showed up on this little like weird
golf cart kind of thing.
Or just motorized wheels thing. It's a single seat. It's just a chassis.
Yeah.
With an engine that goes.
We had one when I was a kid because, my grandfather at one point wanted to build a little go-kart track.
Okay.
In one of the fields. And I'm pretty sure, because I was like 8, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that he got a little go-kart. And it was essentially just a little pipe frame on wheels.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
With a little tiny engine.
Yeah.
Oh, and we loved that thing.
This wouldn't go like a go-kart, though.
No.
Well, I equate this to, and I know there was a name for it, but it's a very utilitarian thing. And I always equated it to the land version of a tugboat.
Kind of.
It's just enough to pull like a car in neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that's as fast as it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a speedy thing.
No.
It's literally just like the minimal amount of a vehicle that you can have.
Yeah. So that's what they're pulling it across the desert with.
Yeah. And so the safari guide, Jack, finds them and offers the teacher offers Kate a ride in
his tour vehicle.
Tour bus.
Yeah.
Which is, to be fair, in a much nicer situation than the one she currently finds herself in.
Well, that is true. Yes.
So she takes him up on it. And there's this very cute back and forth scene where the two separate duos, so Kate and the safari guy, and then Andrew and the mechanic, are talking about how poorly their trip has been so far.
Yes.
So Kate finally makes it to the missionary, and they're doing this really beautiful song in greeting to her.
Mm-hmm.
While she just kind of awkwardly stands there, and she's like, should I wave or anything? And the Reverend's like, no.
Nope, you just sit and listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we get a very quick visit back with Sam and his rebels who are on the run and running out of ammo.
Yeah.
And Andrew has decided he's going to go explain everything to Kate. Right. And apologize to her. So he gets all dressed up, goes to visit her at the mission, interrupts her class, and somehow ends up knocking over literally everything in the front of her class as he's like stumbling over his words and himself, trying to explain things to her.
And the kids are just pissing themselves.
Oh,
laughing.
yeah. Yeah. And Kay's just like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's like she can't even process it.
Which I get it.
Yeah.
You know. So he goes back to his little camp upset. Key has found some goats, which he doesn't quite know that they're goats. He thinks they're very strange animals, but they might make for good food.
Well, yeah, there aren't wild goats in the Kalahari.
Right.
But they got 4 legs and they look edible.
Yeah. So he decides to hunt one, and he does it by doing these little darts, like he has a little dart gun, and the darts have a little poison on them that will make the goat go to sleep.
Well, it's a proper bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But the arrows are only meant to go in.
Yeah.
Not even like an inch. They're enough to break the flesh.
And they fall out.
Because the tips, have tranquilizer on or poison on them. And so it's enough to get the poison in there. And then he goes, collects his arrow, and then you just wait for the animal to fall over.
But there is a young boy who is the shepherd of this little flock of goats.
Yes.
Who sees this happen and promptly takes his bike and rides away. When he comes back, he's got an officer with him.
Mm-hmm.
And Key is in this very confusing situation with the officer, where he is trying to explain that he is perfectly fine sharing this goat for food.
Oh, yeah. There's way more than I can eat.
Yeah.
Please come, sit, bring your family.
Yeah. And the officer doesn't understand anything that he's saying. And takes the goat, and Key gets really pissed off.
He's like, well, that's rude.
And starts to walk away to go and get another one.
Yeah, pulls an arrow out and starts.
And the officer ends up shooting him in the leg to stop him.
Yes.
And brings him back to town. He's in jail now.
But importantly, the evil thing was left at the scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the mechanic who is with Andrew is one of the only people in the area who does speak Bushman.
Right.
So he's been brought in to interpret for Key, who he recognizes as the one who tried to give him the Coke bottle.
Yeah.
And the court date doesn't go very well. They give Key 3 months in jail, and the mechanic is not happy with this because he's like, he's going to die in there. He doesn't know what's going on.
And he's like, it's a death sentence. He's never had to live within 4 walls.
Right.
And basically a closed-in cube.
Yeah. And he's not eating in jail either.
Right.
And it's not like he's on a hunger strike. It's just he doesn't,
Not about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
eventually Andrew hears about all this. So he and the mechanic go to get Key out of jail. He's like, there must be something we can do.
Right.
So they end up talking. They end up employing him as a convict employee.
Yeah.
And they let him out, and they say that he has to be there for, 6 weeks?
Yeah, 6 full weeks.
Or 11 more weeks, because it was 3 months. He was already in there.
Oh, sure.
So he's like, he has to be with you for the 11 weeks, or we'll find him and make him serve it, and then more. And they're like, whatever. So they take him back to their little encampment, right? His name is Jack, but I call him the tour douchebag.
Oh, sure.
Right. So douchebag Jack comes to ask for Key's help finding something a tourist lost. And I thought, what kind of a dick. Right. So anyway, at the same time, Samboja and his men are raiding the school that Kate's working at, taking her and the kids hostage.
Mm-hmm.
So the cops show up. There's a bunch of shit that goes on. Samboja makes them ultimately drop their weapons, and then he takes off on foot with the hostages.
Gives them illicit demands.
Yeah, like between from where they are and the certain place, he wants everyone then cleared out. He doesn't want a human being, and he wants supplies left every 20 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Andrew Key and the mechanic cross paths with Samboja. So I did like a quick summary on this.
Yeah, very quick. There's a lot.
Yeah. They send Key in when Samboja is resting. They dress him up as one of the kids because one of the kids ends up running off.
Well, Sam tells her to go up and try and wave down.
Well, yeah, the teacher's bitching at him, saying these fucking kids can't go 20 miles, right? Because one kid's like, her feet are about to fall off. So he calls this older girl and says, go up to the top of that hill. Wave your hands until an army helicopter or somebody finds you and tell them Samboja was wrong. I want supplies left every 10 miles now.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes off and does it and then runs into Andrew and Key and the mechanic who are out counting a herd.
Right.
Right. So then they finally catch what's going on, send Key in with her headwear and outer robe. And they give him a small needle and a makeshift bow to shoot the rebels with, tranquilizers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew's elephant tranquilizers. So two of the guards, I separated this because this is worth noting. Two of the guards who have been playing cards this whole movie.
And Samboja keeps bitching at them to stop.
And finally, yeah, he's like, if I catch you playing a fucking game one more time, I'm going to blow your fucking brains out myself. You know, they've walked off to play cards.
Mm-hmm.
So Key sneaks in and actually tranquilizes everybody, including Samboja, except these two guards.
Right.
Because nobody saw them. Yeah, they had snuck off before Andrew found out, and they used a telescope to count them and all that shit. So anyway, we have a shootout. Kate and the kids run off to a ravine. Andrew and the mechanic show up. Key, who was taught to drive a truck by the mechanic earlier.
Yes.
Right? Because he's like, there's nothing else to do. We don't have any actual work for him.
Right.
You know. Runs back to the truck, starts it to drive back to Andrew, only he's got it in reverse. And he never really got to the gear changing bit.
Yeah, he does explain that to the mechanic, and the mechanic's like, just whatever gear you're in, man.
So he ends up jumping on the hood, crouching over with the steering wheel, and just letting the car. And I had to explain this to Lily. We're almost to the end, but I got to explain this. Because a lot of people who don't know about these old manual transmission vehicles don't know this. These old, like this Range Rover, you start it up, pop it into first gear, let out the clutch, that motherfucker will run until it either hits something.
Yeah, it'll go.
Yeah, or it runs out of gas. And in reverse is basically first gear reversed.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a high gear. You're not going to go 1,000 miles an hour in reverse. Same thing. You let the clutch out, right? It's going to hit. It's just going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And the idle is enough to keep it going. You don't have to hit the gas. So anyway, he jumps on the hood because of this, bends over to grab the steering wheel, facing the other direction, and is steering this truck, obviously sped up to look like it's going, almost full bore. But it's wonderful. So ultimately what happens is the cops show up with Jack the tour douchebag. He makes it like he saved the day.
Right.
They try to...
Andrew looks like an idiot because... Yeah. He's lost control of the Jeep, so Andrew has to go and grab it to stop it from running over the kids, and he looks like an idiot.
Yeah, he looks like, even though he and the mechanic have, and Key have worked to actively put
disarm
everybody down and then disarm the last two, right? Yeah. So when they show up, Key, we get to the point where Key is leaving. Mm-hmm. It's 11 weeks or up. They're trying to pay him. And he's like, well, I don't know what to do with that. And the mechanic's trying to explain to Andrew, he doesn't understand money. He's like, yeah, but just explain to him he has to take it.
Right.
Then he can do whatever he wants with it. So he takes it. And a little while later, you see him just drop it on the ground.
Right.
So he goes back to where the goat thing happened to find the evil thing, continue his quest to get rid of that. Andrew goes to see Kate. Kate knows his role in everything. And they end up getting together, right? She knows he's actually a decent guy. He's just a dipshit around women. Key finds the end of the earth and gets rid of the evil thing. Yes. And then goes home to his family, and we see him reunite with his kids. They've missed him terribly, and he's just happy to be back. And then all is well.
Yes.
And that is pretty much the sum of The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yes.
So, a fun movie.
Yes.
With some lessons.
I think so.
Why don't you tell us what you got?
Okay. Well, my first one, and I kind of gave a little bit of thought to this, but not maybe a whole lot. I don't know. Just something that occurred to me.
Okay.
Physical comedy is one of those things that I think you just either can or can't.
In terms of like performing it?
Right.
Yes.
Like I think there are a lot of things that you can learn to do really well with practice.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps physical comedy is one. I mean, I think it's something you can get better at with practice. But I think if you're a person who just doesn't do it well, then don't.
I think it has to do with, if you're going to do this level of physical comedy, you really have to watch the silent films.
Yeah, because this does harken back to like
Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, where what made it work were there weren't stuntmen for every little thing.
Right.
You have to, Andrew, right?
Yeah, falls in the mud.
I mean,
all this
face
stuff.
plants. This isn't like he falls and they cut away quick, where he's falling on a cushion and they zoom in. No, it's all happening. He has to run. He has to chase this fucking truck. He has to jump in and out of it. There's a danger element. I mean, it looks simple.
There is.
It's a moving vehicle.
I mean, a pratfall is a difficult thing to pull off.
It is. And, more often than not, twice, 3, 4, maybe 5 times, you have to do it to get the right take. But I agree. You have to commit everything about yourself.
Yes.
To pull it off. Because otherwise it looks like a Hollywood version of, we're paying this guy $225 million to be in this movie. There's no fucking way we're going to let him, even fall an inch. We're going to show him like lean forward 2 inches, and then we're going to cut to a stunt man.
Right.
Right. And then we'll lay him down on the floor nicely and then cut to him. Yeah. You don't get to do that if you really want to pull this off. And that is what makes it work.
Yeah, it is.
They did know how to do it.
Yes, they did. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was tone. This movie has a really great example of like very consistent tone throughout the whole film.
Yes. There are precious few moments where everything dies down. The level comes down enough where you can be like, and then it's right back up again.
Yeah.
It's all go, 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 go. Especially with Sam Boha.
Yeah.
This guy's constantly on the fucking run. So this shit is fast and furious.
Yeah.
Cut into all this other stuff.
Yeah. But while it's funny, there are also like plenty of moments in it where you're like, oh, fuck this guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't once feel any kind of like Stockholm syndrome for this fucking dick, and you actually kind of come just to hate him because, he's rolling in, taking kids and stuff. I mean, these are serious tones.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the thing with comedy is you can't abolish like, true serious moments in life because you don't want to like minimize them with the comedy.
Right.
Right. They weren't making fun of the hostage taking thing.
No.
That was one of the less funny moments of the movie. Right. But everything that comes of it, absolutely, you can make that situation into some moments to make it better. I want to piggyback on that.
Okay.
Because what made this work was the physical comedy.
Yes.
But also the general, I call, the buffoonery.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a long time. I can't think of too many movies since this that I've seen that I have enjoyed so much on just a comedic level of just, fucking silliness. Yeah. Like beyond, letting go of, that wouldn't really happen kind of thing. Suspension of disbelief is easy in a thing like this. But every time I see it, it makes me think how, for the last 20, 30, well, since this movie, especially in the 80s, it's like they took every National Lampoon movie, like, and then American Pie, and then a handful of Cheech and Chong movies, mashed them all together, did the math, found the lowest common denominator that all of them share, and they took that lowest common denominator and raised that to be like the high bar.
Sure.
Most comedies have been of such a puerile nature, right? To where it's not funny, it's uncomfortable because you're a bunch of grown-ass fucking men and women.
Right.
And you think this shit stopped being funny when I was fucking 9.
Yeah.
Why are you presenting this in an R-rated movie that's supposed to be funny to a bunch of adults? And it just makes me...
That's the other thing. Like,
angry.
I don't know if anyone really knows, like, remembers or knows or cares how to do clean comedy anymore. Even in kids' movies, like, they're suffering pretty badly. I was actually thinking a lot about the movie The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is, I mean, it's dumb, but I actually love that movie so much because there are all these really, truly hilarious moments in it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they're trying to get the poison for Cusco. Right. And here's, Cusco's poison. The poison specifically made for Cusco. The poison specifically, that poison.
Yep.
Oh, sure. Or, you know, just all these like very goofy moments in it. And that was in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Was it in the 90s? I think it was late 90s, probably. And it was pretty clean. I think there were a couple of like slightly adult moments in it that went over kids' heads, but for the most part, like it was pretty clean. And you just don't get that kind of thing.
You don't. And we've talked about it before. I'm not like an elitist intellectual type person.
Right.
Right. I love my just bone stupid funny comedies. Right.
Yeah.
I will go back to watching silent films or Three Stooges or Marx Brothers. I love that shit. And, you know, on one level, it is comedic genius, especially for the time, because, you know, all these people had long lasting careers and we still talk about them.
Right.
So clearly something was up. But, you know, for the most part, it's like, you know, this movie isn't going to expand my horizons at all. It's not going to do anything but make me fucking chuckle at just basic stuff. I love physical comedy. Yeah. You know, I think of like Faulty Towers. Some of the funniest moments, like one of the funniest moments I always crack up is when Basil pops Miguel on the head with a spoon.
Right.
And I just love that shit because there are times when that's all you want. You know, and that's the thing about The Gods Must Be Crazy. Nothing about this made you think.
Right. There were like some pretty elaborate setups for some of the jokes, but it paid off.
Yeah. And you don't have to, you know, ponder and dissect and stuff. It's just, it's a buffoonery type level movie. I wish more people would do comedy, like you said, that's clean. So I think of Space Trucker Bruce.
Yeah.
That fucking movie had us rolling.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like it was that funny, like stand-up comic level funny, like, you know, Richard Pryor tearing shit up on the stage. Funny. But it was funny because it was so simple and so clean. And Anton has the ability to write, you know, the quip humor.
Yeah.
Just, you know, one of our favorite lines. Yeah, she cut her hair. Guess we'll have to space her. Yeah. Wait, what? Right. I fucking love that. The way they delivered that to one another, you know? If I put that as a challenge to anyone who wants to write comedy, is try to make it clean. And not because we're puritanistic and stuff, but we don't need to get into this puerile stuff. I think of There's Something About Mary.
Very puerile.
Very puerile. I mean, do we need to see, you know, testicles and part of a dick upside down from one another in a zipper? Did that sell the joke?
Right.
Right. We've seen tons of things where guys have zipped themselves up in their pants and we've never cut away from their face.
Right.
Right. It's the comedic moment that 90% of the population knows this.
Yeah.
has either experienced it or been near it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or been talked
or
to.
can just infer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the best thing about comedy is the inference of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing pratfalls and like I said, Benny Hill buffoonery kind of like this, where you're just going all out, everything's just fucking ridiculous.
It's clever inferences, you know.
Unless you're a stand-up comic, you don't have to worry about the setup and the delivery of the fucking punchline.
Right.
If you're doing it in physical comedy, you can do it with inference of the situation.
Yes.
And I think I would like to see more people take that on.
I would too.
Because to me, it's more of an intelligent comedy.
I think it is.
You don't have to use potty humor and stuff that you remember from, early high school or earlier, middle school, or even elementary. I think if you can do it, you've got a fucking winner. Now, I'm going to say that with this caveat.
Okay.
Most of the producers you're going to go to probably aren't going to see that. So you might be, screwing yourself.
Right.
I have this really great, clean comedy. Everyone who's read it has laughed themselves. They piss their pants. It's great. It's wonderful. But a lot of producers can be like, oh, it has no commercial value. We need nudity. We need potty jokes. We need more dick and vagina jokes and, all this stuff. I can't remember what it was we watched. We didn't do it for the show. But I think we talked about it once, but that's how memorable it was. We watched something and we thought, the guys who got together and made this movie clearly believed this shit was funny.
Yeah, I remember,
and it was,
but I don't remember what it was.
Very pre-adolescent humor.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of an elitist. There's a reason I never got into sports. There's a reason I never got into any of the guy stuff because I fucking hate hanging with men. I really do. Because most of them are manly men who talk like they have a fucking IQ level of 40.
Right.
Right. I just, we've talked about, God, what was it? And you asked me, we just did it. Which one was it?
It was The Vicious Kind.
The Vicious Kind. Yeah. You're like, do guys really talk? And I'm like, yep. See, now you know why I don't ever go out. Since we've met, I've never gone out to hang with guys. I don't have any friends that I go. I mean, I would hang with our neighbor, Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he's cool. But mostly I would hang, my whole group, and it came partly from being raised by mostly women, always felt more comfortable around women. Yeah. But now, to be fair, there are those levels where it's kind of like the female perspective of guy talk.
It's really funny because growing up, I hung out around guys mostly. Like it was easier for me to be friends with guys than it was for me to be friends with women. But the type of guys that I hung out with were not like big sports head guys.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They're actually guys a lot like you. Right.
Well, yeah. Nerds and geeks and freaks.
Yeah. And they didn't talk like that. And it was usually just me and like, between 4 and 6 guys, hanging out. And I was like the token girl of the group. Right.
I get it.
But they didn't talk like that. And so, I mean, I grew up, I guess, kind of naively sheltered in such a way in that like the guys that I hung out with were not like normal guys.
Right.
Well,
and here's a funny thing. So nothing related to any of this at all, but since we're talking about it, but it does have a little bit. I can bring it around because I'm good at that. So follow me, if you will.
I listen.
So most of my working experience has been with women, and that's always been the most comfortable, right? There were a couple of places where I was like the token guy.
Sure.
I mean, we're all work friends, but occasionally go out after work, and I'm the guy who's there. Because we just relate. It was just more comfortable, right? I felt though in later years, like just before we met, right? I was in a situation where I didn't hang out with a lot of people because I was surrounded by men. And it's the kind of thing that made me realize in certain circles the whole disparity of male, female,
Sure.
Numbers, and IT has traditionally been a guy oriented. It still is male dominated.
Yeah.
I mean, we're making headway, but not a lot, not fast enough. But it makes that very clear that in a heavy IT environment, I'm less social.
Sure.
I'm surrounded by guys. And just because everyone's in IT, don't make the mistake that they're, nerds, geeks, and freaks like me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, did you see that game? Right away, I know you and I are not going to get hit. We're not going to get on
the sports ball game.
Yeah, just well, your response was the best the first time I heard it.
Oh, what was that?
I'm sorry, I don't follow the sports.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I love that. Oh man, but yeah, it. I don't even know how we got onto this now, but the perspective of comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like not as many women are enjoying these puerile, infantile humor films.
No.
I think it's a shame. And I think that now the remake of Ghostbusters with an all-female cast, I was against it for a different reason based on principle.
Sure.
But I see where they're doing that because it's like, what else can you do?
Well,
because the slamming that they got had nothing to do with my view. My view. I hate remaking things and replacing male characters with female characters just because.
Right.
Just for that's the hook. I thought that was a terrible idea. And I never stand by that. I'm like, there's so many ways they could have done a Ghostbusters movie with all women without trying to remake and imitate the first one. Right? They could have been the daughters or they could have just been a bunch of women who are like, yeah, these fucking guys did this thing and then geezered up and died off. So let's get in on this. I would have been 100% on board with that. 100%. But it's like, watching Force Awakens now. It's like now, once I saw it, I'm like, I can barely stomach watching this because I'm just fucking watching Star Wars again, only a worse version.
It's the same story.
Yeah, So, but they got so much negative shit.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't because of that. It was just because they're women. And these people didn't hold back and didn't keep it.
It was just because they have vaginas.
Yeah. They're like, oh, a bunch of fucking women. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Somebody is actually dumb enough or brave enough or both to post that?
Oh, it's
Jesus Christ. Well, I don't say it's bravery, but anyway.
I mean, I once had a man tell me, because I had to run to the bathroom it was at a workplace. I had to run to the bathroom for something because I was on my period and I had to go and do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually like, can't you just hold it in?
That's what I'm talking about.
And I was like, I had no idea what to say.
I'm just going to go ahead and say this. So, people who write scripts and have these far out, unlikable characters on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. They are mocked to the extreme because it really isn't hard to do because that's how the general level of stupidity is, when it comes to sexism.
Yeah.
And, the male perspective isn't great. I'm not slaying my own kind.
Oh, I'm aware.
I mean, there's plenty of people who can get the job done.
Yeah.
And not offend anybody. But yeah, bringing this all back around, I think, this is why we need more women in filmmaking.
Yeah.
And, not just writing the scripts, but doing the projects and showing us what comedy can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be fun.
I think there is a huge market for coming back to this movie for clean comedy. My laptop keeps going to sleep. There's a huge market for clean comedy and no one filling it.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think remember a couple episodes ago, I said, we are the ones who steer the industry.
Yeah.
we were talking about how producers like, hey, this is what's hot now. You got to write for what's hot now. Bullshit. Someone will write something. Someone will be like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Produce it. People will see it. And then everyone wants to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So we as the creators steer the industry. Don't buy into that bullshit. I'm so sick of what's hot now. All right. Because by the time you get around to going through all the gates and doors and hoops and shit, then the fucking fad is gone.
Right.
So you've wasted everybody's time, including your own. If you're successful and you have these connections, and if we were at a point where we could make a phone call and by tomorrow afternoon have 4 directors lined up for a fucking script that we did because it's in the moment.
Sure.
Fine. That's how it works in that small, super tiny elite group. But for the industry as a whole, you don't fucking kid yourself. Right? Kickoff is at 10 o'clock. You're not going to get there till like 4 p.m. And by that time, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I would like to see more female, perspective comedies. They're taking, and clean, without getting into dick jokes and vagina spiders and,
yeah, I mean, I will say I have hung out with women also, and here's something that probably won't surprise you. Women can be just as vulgar as men.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I was saying is,
right?
I've been with women who it's the equivalent of the male locker room. And it's not so much the vulgarity. It's just because we can be pretty vulgar.
Oh, sure.
Right. But I could pump out we did, Baking in Chaos. Yeah. That's a kid, young adult level comedy. Why can't we have more of this, but for grown-ups?
And it's pretty clean, and like the comedy is very buffoonery oriented in that script.
Yeah, I guess I can't unhinge myself from this whole comedy thing. Is there didn't need to be anything that would have been added in by a production company today that would have sold this movie better.
Right.
Right? It would have made it less funny.
I think so, yes.
Because it was all situational. Very little of it was conversational.
Yeah, the writing of this was very clever.
Yes.
Very clever.
Yeah. It was on the move. It was high-paced, good tempo.
Mm-hmm.
And it kept its head at the same level above the water.
Yeah.
Peripherally. What's going on? Anyway, yeah. That would lead to my next lesson. Write it.
Yes.
Write it. There's no magic formula to write a comedy like this. The buffoonery level. I mean, there's like super intelligent comedies that rely on timing and stuff, almost like a stand-up routine. Got to have the timing, got to have the setup, got to have the delivery and stuff. But when you're doing the physical stuff, you don't even need to know how to format the fucking script correctly for it. Right. Especially if you're writing it for yourself. John walks in, he's going to get hit in the head with a thing. You know what the fuck's going on. Mm-hmm. As long as you can explain it to the actors and make it happen, everyone's happy. Although, that being said, I do encourage you to learn how to correctly write a screenplay in all levels and formats for all genres. That's just, it makes life easier.
Yes.
But I'll use Ryan Kruger as an example again. When you shoot a whole movie based on 3 pages of notes, and that's your working script, if you're that good, and he is, as clearly the Friedberry phenomenon is showing, do it that way too,
Yeah.
But if you want to work with the big studios, you gotta walk in with the right structure.
Yes.
Otherwise they get angry and frustrated.
Right. Where are my pages?
Yeah. I don't have a script.
Well.
Yeah, that little moment of silence is exactly what you're going to get on the other end of the phone. And I talked about it at the beginning. Pay your people. Do what you can. Mm-hmm. Be cool. I guess that's the thing, is be cool. Recognize you may have created it.
Yes.
Okay? But everyone else made it a reality. So pay them their due. right? As you can, the best you can. I think that's all anybody wants, you know?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine people get reputations as, oh, this fucking guy. Yeah, he's made 5 feature films, as an indie filmmaker. He's never fucking paid anybody. I mean, ultimately, that's got to get around.
Yeah, I mean,
where people can be like, yeah, I'm not interested in your bullshit anymore.
I would imagine so.
But hey, why? I don't know. I mean, the people we've talked to have been cool about stuff.
Yeah.
They get it. And I guess there's a difference between the professional independent filmmaker and just the swinging dick independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
Right. A professional filmmaker doesn't necessarily have big budgets, like, Pondo Enterprises, right? Revenge of Zoe.
They're very proud to have said that to be able to say they paid everyone something.
Yeah. And, and Cliff, I wouldn't know what to do with $40,000 for a fucking movie. I'm working with like $1,500.
Yeah.
And I can make something. But they're still professionals because they understand the business. They understand the sacrifices and efforts that people put in to make their project.
Yes.
Because really, when it all comes down to it, as a filmmaker, it's just your whim, right? You just want to make a thing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the whole world in general doesn't much give a shit what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see what you can do. But the people who are there with you, acting, bringing your script to life, putting your sets together, shooting your shit, helping you edit, whatever, they believe in you enough to give up their time to, you want to do this thing? I would like to be a part of it. Let's do this. Just be good to them, for shit's sake. Anyone who helps in any way.
Yeah.
Give them some credit too. That's the other thing. I really don't have too many more lessons. It's just a fun movie.
It is a fun one. I have one more.
Oh, well, absolutely. Please.
So I think one thing that this movie does that made it as successful as it is was that it pulled in unique perspectives.
Yes.
Right? Before this movie came out, there were not, really any or many fictional films having to do with the Bushmen.
That is true. Like I said, my only exposure was some limited
documentary
on National Geographic and other documentaries that weren't even about the Bushmen.
Right.
They just were part of the broader thing. So yeah, this was kind of revelatory to me. Like, well, this whole thing is about a Bushman.
Right.
Wicked.
And you can learn things from it, and you take it with a grain of salt, obviously, because it is a work of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But it can, I don't know, I think unique perspectives are something that, from a commercial standpoint, actually help you sell films really well.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I guess that's part of the thing in the lessons too, is don't be afraid to use a fictionalized version of a group as long as it's not derogatory.
Well, yeah.
So let's go back to the Bushman thing, right? A lot of people were saying, they're making it seem like all the Bushmen live out in the middle of nowhere. Da, da, da. No. They're taking it and they're kind of like, they're exaggerating it for the movie, this particular situation. But we know as a fact. And it's funny, if any of you have watched Ewan McGregor's series, All the Way Round.
Long way round, long way
up, long way down. Yeah. Where he and his buddy Charlie travel around the world.
On motorcycles.
Yeah. From, top to bottom to top, and from side to side.
Yeah.
When they went through Africa, they did come across and were invited to a tribe that had no desire to do anything modern. Now, they had contact with modern people.
Right.
Because, obviously how would you get invited?
And they wore modern clothing.
But they chose to live in the exact way, right? They could have, little shanties and metal houses and stuff. But they have their traditional huts that they've had for thousands of years. And that's how they want to live. Now, there are tribes of Bushmen who like to live like that. And there are tribes throughout countries all throughout Africa that do choose to continue to live like that.
Yeah.
So it's not mocking anyone. It's showing if there was a tribe of Bushmen who were just living traditionally and haven't been in contact with civilization, right? And we know that those people are getting fewer and fewer.
Yes.
Like we know down in South America, there are, well-documented bits of tribes discovered. And they even have a government organization.
Right.
That's like, okay, well, so you took a picture of them from a plane, keep the fuck away.
Yeah.
And now we're going to set up a perimeter and keep people the fuck out. Leave these people alone.
Yeah.
Right? If they've never been in contact with modern civilization, let's leave it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
It's worked for them so far.
Yeah, it seems to be working. Unless what we're doing could potentially kill them, like burning down their shit.
I mean,
right?
I think, yeah.
Then they'll send someone in and be like, okay, dude, you got to go. We can't stop the forest getting cut down, but we can pick your shit up and move you so you don't get rolled over.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I would certainly hope that both North and South America learned, long enough ago. Don't just leave the native people alone.
Walk away.
Right.
Just walk away.
Because we didn't do that. Right?
No, well, because as a European-based,
right,
population, there was always this compulsion to bring them out of this savagery and civilize them, and that has destroyed, more lives than it has ever helped. And we all know that.
Yeah.
But the thing about this movie is, like you said, you may learn something. Now, they did take actual, practices of the Bushmen, how they get water, where they know how to find food. Now, this doesn't justify it as an educational thing.
No.
Right? Because there are other things. But that's the thing is, I will never be able to view this as they mocked them. Like, no, they exaggerated a circumstance and for the film.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was embarrassing to any Bushman. It's like, well, God, that's actually, I'm jealous. Growing up, I'm like, I always thought back to it, I'm like, God, can you imagine being in a place where everyone was working together and you didn't have to, do all the shit that we do.
Yeah.
And if you could just get by.
And that was kind of the perspective of the film, I felt, as well.
Well, yeah, because the contrast that they bam, slammed us into like Johannesburg or wherever it was supposed to be with, fucking bumper to bumper traffic and people just going crazy and the whole time and work thing and how ridiculous. And they did it from almost like not fully, but kind of like with a Bushman's perspective. If they had had this presented to them, this is how they would repeat it back. So you have to look busy and then you can stop looking busy for a little bit. And then you have to look busy again. And then this busy in this part of your life, you have to have a second life where you do other busy things, but not the same. That is how absolutely fucking stupid the situation we've developed for ourselves has become.
Yes.
So kudos, modern civilization. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I mean, kind of back to my thing is unique perspectives. It doesn't necessarily have to be Bushmen.
Right.
But, there are plenty of people with very unique perspectives in the world that stories can be told about. And you can even just make up unique perspectives for your works of fiction and art.
Robin Williams' film, Moscow on the Hudson.
Sure.
From way back. Guy who was a circus performer decided not to get on the bus when they came to New York City from Russia to a performance, and he, applied for asylum. And then we see New York City through his perspective.
Right.
Then we have comedians like Jakub Smirnov, who back in the day was a big deal because he was in the movie as well. His whole comedy thing was his comedy was based on his experiences in America and how he perceived the stuff. And then he just exaggerated and blew it up to a comedic level, but you're listening to it and you're thinking, that's actually, it's not that fucking far off.
Yeah.
social media it has exploded the last few years with this very thing. Articles about, how Europeans look at these things in America and stuff, and how Americans view things in whatever country the article's taking place in. We're all different.
Oh, yeah.
And we all do shit that is so ridiculously stupid at some level. It deserves mocking. Yes. Right? No matter who you are, where you come from. But that's kind of where comedy comes from.
Yes.
Is just the ridiculous reality of something. So you make fun of it.
Sure.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the perspectives thing is wildly accurate.
Yeah. And I mean, even if it isn't for comedy, right? One of the things that they will tell you over and over again when you're learning how to like pitch things, and when specifically the like, why you, why now, if you're writing something about a medical practice, for instance, and you're like, well, I did go through medical school and I was a resident for a bit, and this is kind of based off of the really fucked up hospital that I worked in, right? And it's my unique perspective on things.
Yep.
That's not a great example because there's like a shitload of medical dramas, but
yeah, but we get it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do a perspective thing. Don't be afraid to do a buffoonery level thing.
Yeah.
Do be afraid to do a puerile thing. I don't think we need those anymore. I think we can get back to, let's just be funny. Mm-hmm. And let's not be gross about it. And let's not be infantile and immature about it, because, it doesn't make you a grown up that doesn't make me uncomfortable. And I can talk about, penises and vaginas or dicks and pussies. I can call them either and be comfortable. How about you not talk about any of them and then be funny about something else?
Yeah.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's more difficult.
I think our funniest moments when we play D&D, and we have a lot of them, ones where we all just about wet ourselves, right? None of them are puerile things.
No.
We occasionally make somewhat puerile jokes, but we keep it relatively clean because Lily plays with us.
Well, yeah.
But, but almost all of the ones are just these like situational things, and someone says a thing that is only relevant to that particular situation.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just boom.
Like, you still crack up and Lily still cracks up when we bring up we spoke with our eyes. Threats were made.
I know. That was fucking hilarious. You were so serious about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it sounded hilarious. Oh my God. Anyway, I think that wraps up the lessons for this bad boy.
I think so.
Just get out there, do the stuff. Let's try and make some comedies that don't have to do with pie fucking or, getting stoned or high and losing your shit. And, let's raise the bar and go after it.
Yes.
Anyway. So, we have a website.
We do have a website. It's www.lordsofvisceralproductions.com.
Yes, it is.
I didn't trip over that once.
Not
Suck it.
Once.
Yeah.
Everything is there. Go check it out. Mm-hmm. Podcast stuff, BF McGillicuddy stuff, other stuff, all of our links, platforms, social media, everything.
Etc.
Check out your local cons.
Yeah, and check out the guys we mentioned, not guys, but the people we mentioned at the beginning of this episode.
And those, again, I'm going to put links in the show notes for that. I mean, obviously it's going to be 2 weeks past it, but still, I mean, it's not like they only make and sell shit at the con.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing this as their secondhand gig, and would like to eventually, like every other creative, make this their main gig.
Yeah.
So support them, support the local folks, go to these smaller cons, go to these like smaller festivals, like the Shriek Fest,
mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. Go to meet people, but also go to meet the local people.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to do more and more of these.
Yes.
We all know why things have been slowed down, but hopefully it'll get better.
Hopefully.
And we can do more of the social stuff. So, support your folks. Check these guys out in the show notes. See what they've got.
I have 2 more things to say.
please do.
So I did, throughout the course of the show, look up whether or not you can stream The Gods Must Be Crazy on any streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot. However, you can buy The Gods Must Be Crazy 1 and 2 online for like $30 a DVD.
Okay, I would just like to say skip Gods Must Be Crazy too.
Yeah.
It was a formulaic attempt to capitalize on the brilliance of the first one, and it fell way short.
Well, when I searched it up, the first thing that popped up is a double feature that has both of them in the same DVD case.
Oh,
and
I mean, that's
like
fine.
The same price as just one or the other, which is interesting to me, but whatever. Second thing, completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Hey. Hey. Do you like weird soda?
Oh, yeah.
Are you into weird soda?
Of course.
You know this weird soda? It's not weird, actually, but it is, we're in our neck of the woods. Rather hard to come by.
Yes.
It is the national soft drink of Peru, Inca Kola.
Yes.
We are not sponsored by Inca Kola.
No, we are not.
I wish we were, because we would take our pay in Inca Kola.
Absolutely. That is another element that made this weekend fucking outstanding.
I know.
So, Inca Kola, you can't generally find it. It was difficult to find in its heyday.
It was difficult to find originally when we could find it at local odd and end grocery stores, like the Mexican grocery stores or the Asian grocery stores.
Right. We were served it in a Peruvian restaurant, a really small one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, such wonderful food. They, of course, folded and disappeared a long time ago.
There, but they're gone now.
Yeah, and they served us this thing like Inca Kola, and what came out was not what we were expecting.
No.
We were expecting Coca-Cola that had some sort of we were expecting like a brown beverage.
Right, kind of like a Mexican Coke or something.
Yeah, or like a Dr. Peppery take on something. They brought out this
lime yellowish green.
Yeah.
Looked like Mountain Dew light.
And smelled like nothing we've ever smelled before and tasted like nothing we've ever tasted before. It reminds you of bubblegum, reminds me of kind of Blue Moon ice cream, reminded Tyler of like
banana
and creams, like a cream soda cream flavor.
Yeah.
It is so good. Anyway.
It's excellent.
My excellent wife sleuthed her way through online order stuff and through Amazon, found someone who was selling a fucking case
for a somewhat reasonable price.
Yeah, for like $1.25 a can.
Yeah,
which is more reasonable.
It is. It's really reasonable. Because I've looked and I found 2 liters for like $16, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, at some point, all this shit vanished. Right.
Yeah, they stopped carrying it in our.
And then we found out that they stopped for some reason. We never got the reason behind it.
They stopped shipping it up.
In Peru, they just quit exporting it as a major export. Right. And now, rumor has it, there is that one Peruvian restaurant that I think is still alive on State Street.
Maybe.
That served it, because we talked about maybe we could call them up and say, hey, do you have like a case of Inca Kola?
We get a 6-pack from you.
Yeah. Can I even just buy a 6-pack off of you? Instead of coming in and having, because we did go in and eat and they had it.
Yeah.
And we were like, I don't even give a shit what the food is. I just want the fucking Inca Kola.
The food actually, honestly, wasn't great, but we didn't care because it was
Inca Kola. Yeah. That's why we didn't go back for food. And Inca Kola. We were like, maybe we could just get the cola.
Right.
But anyway. Yeah.
So we have a case. It's hilarious because I forgot that I ordered it completely.
I know.
Because it took more than your standard 2 days. From Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's not a Prime.
No, it is not. And then I went out to do something and I happened by the mailbox and I saw this package and it had my name on it. And I was like, huh, what did I order? And I looked at the from address, which essentially just said like Los Libros de Español. And I was like, I don't think I ordered any Spanish books. But I picked it up and I was like, it's heavy enough to be books. What is happening? I started carrying it back and then I realized, like, it clicked with me. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good day.
So
my Inca Kola is here.
all the way from fucking Peru, this magical beverage has appeared.
Yes.
And we are on zombie apocalypse level supply
rationing.
Yes. We're not going to drink it with dinner.
No.
Because it shouldn't be consumed with food. It shouldn't be a utilitarian thing. And we're also not putting it in Lily's lunches because she's always saying how, like, you know, when I bought her that coffee, she's like, well, don't put it in my lunch. I just want to take it to school. Because if I drink it for lunch, I'm just going to go glug, 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 to hurry up and, you know, like, well, you can't do that with Inca Cola.
It's a special treat.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a treat night. Let's have an Inca Cola.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, this is going to last much longer than it actually is. I think by the end of this week, it's going to be fucking gone in a memory. But
for sure,
I like to believe that we'll make it last as long as we can.
Well,
now I want one.
I kind of want one.
I want
too.
Death Wish backed up by Inca Cola. All right. So, folks, look up Inca Cola. If you can find it somewhere, order some, try it out. And if you like it, keep hunting for it because we will. And hopefully, maybe, you know, if we can get people ordering this shit, maybe they'll be like, you know, unless there's like a pandemic reason, because but it disappeared before the pandemic.
I love how you turn this into like a kind of practical reason for bringing it up when my real reason was just to be like a little braggadocious.
Yeah, I get it. But I take the joy of what you've brought up and now I'm turning it into action.
Action.
Yeah. Nobody should have to live without Inca Cola.
That's
Not like
true.
this.
It's so good.
Not like this. So, you know, if we can get people ordering it, maybe they'll be like, oh, fuck, maybe it'll be worth sending it back up there. I don't know. I don't know what the story behind it is, but all I know is we have it. We're going to enjoy it. And when it's gone, just be like fucking crack addicts, just bouncing off the walls of a locked room. Like,
for the national soft drink of Peru.
I know, man. Why they struck it big with that one. That was a big win.
Yeah, it's so good. Anyway.
Right. So, B-siders, be good to one another. Do your thing. Support people, you know, social media, reach out, form your tribes, and just support one another. Be positive.
Yeah.
All right.
Until next week.
B-siders, this is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And we will talk to you soon.
Bye.